aliens in the ocean. I mean, come on, you really think Congress would be taking that seriously?
Well, yeah. They just had a whole hearing, about UFOs, or I guess they're calling them UAPs now.
So we're really diving deep into all this today, huh? We're going to figure out what exactly is going on.
Crazy, right? We're talking official reports from the Pentagon, eyewitness accounts, even military personnel are seeing things, and elected officials want answers. It's not just a fringe theory anymore.
So where do we even start with all of this? Guess we should start with that Pentagon report.
Right, it talks about all these unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs.
It's like they're just trying to rebrand UFOs, right?
Maybe a little, but it's more than that. UAPs cover more. It's a wider range of events, not just stuff in the air.
So, like, what's in this report that's got everyone so riled up?
Well, there are a ton of reports. Over 750, can you believe that? Hundreds of them are still unsolved. They've ruled out all the obvious stuff, like balloons and birds and drones.
Wow, hundreds. That's a lot of stuff we can't explain happening right over our heads.
Yeah, and they're taking it pretty seriously. They're using all this high-tech stuff to try and figure out what these UAPs are. You can imagine trying to identify a blip on a radar screen that's just doing things we've never seen.
That makes it even creepier to think about. So we've got all these unexplained sightings, and now Congress is holding hearings. Why should I care about any of this?
Well, Congress is responding directly to this report from the Pentagon. And it's a big deal because it means they aren't messing around. They want some answers from the Department of Defense. More transparency.
That makes sense. It's more than some scientific mystery. I mean, this could be about national security, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can tell from what some of the representatives were saying at the hearing, like Representative Nancy Mace was concerned about the lack of transparency. She thinks the public has the right to know what's happening, especially if it could be a threat.
I mean, she's got a point, right? If we're talking about UAPs, maybe we should be a bit more transparent.
Exactly. Then there's Representative Glenn Grothman. He was more focused on the whole national security angle. We can't just ignore these things, he said, especially if there's some kind of super advanced technology from another country. I mean, that could be really bad.
Yeah, if some other nation has technology that's way ahead of ours, that's scary. Like, it could change everything,
Yeah, it would definitely shake things up. And you know what's even weirder? A lot of these sightings are happening around water.
Wait, underwater? Like aliens in the ocean? Come on now.
I know, right? It sounds crazy, but that's what people are saying. We've got all these government officials super worried about things they can't explain, and a lot of it is happening in the ocean, a place we barely understand.
So you're saying we've got these unexplained things in the sky and maybe in the ocean too. This is where it gets really interesting. I mean, what if there really is something lurking down there?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Representative Andy Ogles actually asked that during the hearing. He said, and I quote, "There is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly?"
That sends chills down my spine. It really makes you think, doesn't it? We're not just talking about some lights in the sky anymore. This is something way bigger.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder, what if it's not ours? Are we talking about another country or, like you said, something otherworldly?
And the fact that they're seeing these things underwater just makes it even more confusing.
Totally, right? It's like whatever this is, it can move between air and water. That's not exactly something we can do. It defies what we know about physics.
My head is spinning. This is a lot to take in. Okay, so we've got all this weird stuff going on, unexplained events in the air, underwater. But if it's not just glitches, then what could they be?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Let's start simple. Could they be secret government stuff? Yeah. Like some kind of experimental aircraft or something?
That makes sense. Governments are always up to something, right? They could be testing all sorts of new technology that we don't know about.
Right. It's totally possible. Maybe some of these are just top secret military programs they're keeping quiet. Stealth aircraft, super advanced drones, even those hypersonic vehicles. Who knows?
But wouldn't they want to keep that totally under wraps? Like, wouldn't they try to avoid freaking everyone out with mysterious objects?
Well, yeah, you'd think so, right? But sometimes things leak out. Information gets out. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes not. And then there's the whole disinformation thing.
Disinformation? Like, are you saying they might be messing with us on purpose? Just to throw us off the trail?
It's a possibility. Think of it like a smokescreen. They release some crazy information, and suddenly it's harder to figure out what's real and what's not, especially when it comes to stuff like national security.
Okay, so you've got secret projects and maybe even some intentional fake news to throw us off. What about natural stuff? Are there any natural explanations that could fit? like weather or something.
There are definitely some natural things that can look pretty strange. Ball lightning, meteor showers, heck, even weird cloud formations, or the way light looks when it goes through ice crystals. People might mistake that for something more, out there.
But wouldn't scientists be able to tell the difference? I mean, we have tons of research and fancy equipment for that kind of stuff.
Most of the time, yeah. But we're still learning new stuff about the planet all the time. There are definitely still mysteries out there, things we haven't seen or explained yet. And don't forget the ocean. I mean, we've barely explored it. Who knows what's going on down there?
Okay, that's a good point. So we've got government secrets, natural mysteries, and of course, there's the big one everyone's talking about, aliens. The report didn't say anything about extraterrestrial activity, but that's not stopping anyone from speculating, right?
Nope, not at all. I mean, people have always been fascinated with the idea of aliens, and I think it's good to keep an open mind about it. Consider all the possibilities, even the crazy ones.
I'm with you on that. But if we're going to talk about aliens, we got to talk about why the ocean. What's so special about it that would attract them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's fueled a ton of theories. Some people think it's the perfect hiding spot. The ocean is huge and deep. Imagine like a giant underwater alien base. No one would ever find it.
That does sound pretty cool, gotta admit. But we need to stay grounded, right?
Mm.
Is there a more realistic reason aliens might be interested in the ocean?
Well, some scientists think that maybe alien life could be adapted to water, right? I mean, water is essential for life, at least the kind we know. So maybe our oceans are just a natural habitat for them.
That's true. And like you said, we don't know much about the deep ocean. It's totally possible there's life down there we haven't found yet. Maybe some of it is, well, not from around here.
Right. That's a crazy thought, isn't it? Makes you realize just how much we don't know about our own planet, let alone the rest of space.
So we've got unexplained sightings, a lot of them in the ocean, and a bunch of possible explanations. Some are pretty normal, some are way out there. What does all of this mean for the average person? Should we be worried, excited, confused?
I think a little of everything is normal,
Right.
right? I mean, there's definitely some uncertainty and a bit of unease when we think about the unknown, but it's exciting too. We could be on the verge of something huge, like a discovery that changes everything.
It makes you feel kind of small, doesn't it? Like we're just starting to figure things out, and there might be something out there that's light years ahead of us.
It definitely makes you question things, what we thought was possible, you know? But it also reminds us that we're part of something way bigger than ourselves, and we're learning more every day.
Okay, this is a lot. We need to explore these possibilities, especially those underwater sightings. What if it's not aliens? What else could it be?
It's a question that leads us into some fascinating territory. If some of these UAPs are as advanced as they seem, the implications are staggering. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's consider some alternative explanations, especially for those underwater sightings.
Okay, so you're saying maybe it's not aliens? But if these things aren't extraterrestrial, what else could they be? Our listeners are probably wondering the same thing.
Well, let's play devil's advocate for a moment. What if some of these underwater sightings are simply misidentified marine life or unusual underwater phenomena? The ocean is a vast and largely unexplored environment. Could it be that we're just seeing things we don't yet understand?
That makes sense. We're always discovering new species and uncovering new mysteries about the deep ocean. Could some of these UAPs be something like that? Just unknown creatures or natural events that we're misinterpreting?
Imagine you're a scientist analyzing sonar data, and you see something that moves in ways you've never seen before. It could be a new species of deep-sea creature exhibiting bioluminescence or acoustic behavior that we haven't documented yet.
Okay, I see your point. But what about the UAPs that are being observed both in the air and underwater? How do we explain something that can seemingly transition between those two environments?
That's where things get particularly challenging. It's one thing to consider unusual marine life or underwater phenomena, but something that can move seamlessly between air and water suggests a level of technology that we haven't achieved yet.
So you're saying that even if we rule out aliens, we're still left with the possibility of some pretty advanced technology at play.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the possibility of classified government projects, or even technology developed by another nation. We know that countries around the world are investing heavily in advanced military technology, including underwater drones and submersibles. Could it be that some of these UAP sightings are related to those developments?
But wouldn't we have some indication of that? Wouldn't our intelligence agencies be aware of these activities?
Not necessarily. Remember, we're talking about classified projects, things that are intentionally kept secret. It's entirely possible that some nations possess technology that is far more advanced than we realize.
Okay, that's a bit unsettling. It makes you wonder what else might be out there, hidden beneath the waves or concealed in the skies that we're completely unaware of.
It raises an important question about our own awareness and understanding of the world around us. We often assume that we're at the forefront of technological development. But what if we're not? What if there are others who have surpassed us in ways we can't even imagine?
It's a humbling thought. It makes you realize how much we still have to learn. But let's get back to those underwater UAPs. If some of them are not secret government projects or advanced drones, are there any other explanations that we haven't considered yet?
There are a few other possibilities, though they might seem a bit more speculative. Some researchers have suggested that these UAPs could be evidence of some form of advanced underwater propulsion system, perhaps utilizing technologies that we haven't even conceived of yet.
Okay, now you're really piquing my curiosity. What kind of technologies are we talking about here?
Well, we're venturing into the realm of speculation here, but some theories involve things like magnetohydrodynamics, which utilizes the interaction between magnetic fields and electrically conductive fluids to create propulsion.
That sounds incredibly complex. Are there any real-world applications of that kind of technology?
It's still largely in the experimental phase, but there are some potential applications being explored, particularly in the field of naval propulsion. However, the technology required to create the kind of underwater maneuvers described in some of these UAP reports would be far more advanced than anything we've currently developed.
So we're talking about something that's potentially groundbreaking, something that could revolutionize our understanding of underwater travel.
Exactly. And that's why these UAP sightings are so intriguing. They challenge our assumptions about what's possible and push us to consider new ways of thinking about science and technology.
This is all fascinating, but I have to ask, are you leaning towards any particular explanation for these UAPs, especially the ones being observed underwater?
It's important to remain objective and consider all the possibilities. We simply don't have enough conclusive evidence to definitively say what these UAPs are. But I will say this. The fact that we're having this conversation at all, that elected officials are publicly acknowledging the phenomenon and demanding answers, suggests that this is something we can't afford to ignore.
You're right. This isn't just some fringe conspiracy theory anymore. It's a real phenomenon that's being taken seriously at the highest levels of government. But what does that mean for the future? What are the implications of all this for humanity as a whole?
That's a question we'll explore in more detail in our next episode.
Okay, so we've laid it all out. Unexplained sightings, some pretty wild theories. But let's talk about the really big picture here. What if it's true? What if there's something out there, way more advanced than us? What does that even mean for humanity?
Well, people have been asking that question forever, haven't they? It really makes you think about our place in the universe, our technology, everything. What if we're not at the top of the food chain after all?
Yeah, it's a little humbling, right? We've always wondered if we're alone, and now it's like, maybe we're not, but we're also not the most advanced kids on the block.
And imagine what they must know. If they can travel through space, maybe even between dimensions. The stuff they must have figured out, the technology, the science.
It's pretty mind-blowing. But there's that other side of it, too. Like, what if they aren't so friendly? What are their intentions? That's a little scary.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be cautious about. We can't assume everything is sunshine and roses, but we need to be careful and, a little skeptical too. We're dealing with the unknown here, and that can be exciting, but it can also be dangerous.
Yeah, it's like walking into a dark room. You're curious, but you're also a little afraid of what you might find.
That's a great analogy. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
Mhm.
We're pushing the limits of what we know, really questioning everything.
So let's bring it back to reality for a second. What are the more practical implications here? How does this affect us right now?
Well, for one thing, governments are paying attention. They're taking this way more seriously than they used to. More research, more investigations. People are talking about it more openly too.
So, in a way, all these UAPs are actually pushing us forward. More science, more transparency.
Yeah, I think so. The more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. And that pushes us to keep searching, to keep asking questions.
It's like a giant puzzle, and every time we find a piece, it just creates more questions.
Exactly. And that's what science is all about, right?
Yeah.
Trying to understand, to learn. And this is taking us into some really uncharted territory.
It's been an amazing journey today diving into all of this with you. I guess the big takeaway is we just don't know. But the fact that we're even talking about it, that's something. So to our listeners out there, keep looking up, keep wondering, keep asking the tough questions, and who knows, maybe someday we'll have some answers. Until then, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.